Okay, welcome back. We're now in Module 3. We're going to build our data model. So right now, Power BI has got 4 tables that we've imported into the model, but neither of these tables or none of these tables know anything about each other. So in this lesson, we're going to connect them with relationships, and this is what makes your reports actually work dynamically, where you can filter certain data sets by clicking on other data sets. So that's what we need to define now. So how we do this, we go onto this left-hand navigation. You can see how there's a little icon with tables connected to each other. That's our model view. Now what should have happened, these 4 tables should have been here, not connected to each other. But Power BI is quite clever and it tries to define the relationships between tables automatically. And we don't want this. We want to be able to go in and define the relationships ourselves. So I can show you how to change the setting that this doesn't happen going forward. But for now, what we're going to do, if yours has any of these tables linked, just click on the line, right click and delete. And you can delete the relationship. Click on this line, right click and delete. So this is how it should have opened up. We have 4 tables. They're totally separate from each other, and none of these tables know what is happening in any of the other tables. Okay, so they're 4 independent tables. Now, if we expand these, we can see the fields in all of the tables. The data source that we got this data from has been set up that there are relationships between these tables, and we now need to let Power BI know about these relationships. So if we have a look at the product table, you can see we have a product ID. So that is the unique identifier that we can identify each product by. If we look in our sales table, you can see there's a product ID field there. So there's a relationship. Every product that's sold, that product's product ID gets put in the sales table. If we look at the customer table, we have a customer ID. That is a unique number, like your own ID number, a unique identifier for an individual customer. So you can see here we have customer ID in our transactional table, in our sales table. So we know for that sales record which customer actually bought something from us. And then we have date in our calendar table, which is a unique identifier of a date. And we have the order date in our sales table, so that we can find out what date that sale took place. So what we need to do now is we need to be able to relate these tables. So how do we do that? So what I normally like to do, I like to put my transactional tables at the bottom and have these master data tables at the top. These are called dimensions, and this is a fact table. So a dimension is a master data where it has unique records for different items, and then the fact table is the transactional table that has multiple records. So that's where all the transactions take place. So what we want to do now, we want to relate our customer table through the customer ID to our transactional table. So how we can do that is we can click on customer ID in either table, and you can just click with your mouse and drag it across, and you want to drop it on the related field. And you'll see this little window will pop up. So what it's saying here, do you want to create a new relationship? You can select the tables and columns that are related. So we've got the sales table that, because we clicked on customer ID, that is highlighted. And we have our customer table that has customer ID highlighted because we dropped the field we dragged across onto the customer ID. So you can see it gives you a little preview, so you can just make sure that you're happy that that is the field that you want to join, and those are the tables you want to join. You can choose other tables if you did the wrong table, but I'm happy. I want to relate customer ID to customer ID. The cardinality, basically what this means is what in the relationship, how do the records relate to each other? Meaning in one table, there's one record that relates to many records in another table. So if we look at our customer table, logically, we have Sandra Mitchell identified by customer ID 2. That's an individual, and she only appears once in this table. But Sandra Mitchell might have bought 10 times from us, so she would appear 10 times in this table. So the relationship here means that one customer here can appear many times here. And how this cardinality is written here is it always refers to the top table related to the bottom table. So here we have many to one. So Sandra appeared many times here, but will only appear once here. And how do we want to filter? We would want to filter our sales data by Sandra. So if we have a drop down for a customer and we choose Sandra, Sandra from the customer table would filter all the transactions to only show Sandra's transactions in the sales table. So that would be a single direction filter. And we want the relationship to be active, meaning it needs to apply this now, which is what we want. So we can just click Save. Here you can see there's a 1, and it's flowing down to filter the transactional table at the bottom that is many. That little star means many. That little 1 means it appears once, so it's a 1 to many relationship. And this little direction arrow means that our dimension table will filter our fact table. And that's exactly what we want. Another way you can manage relationships, I always use the drag and drop, but you can click on this Manage Relationship button here. And there you can actually go and click on Auto Detect, which I would never recommend, because then Power BI will just go and relate whatever it thinks should relate. And how it does that is on the name of the field. So if you have name, if you have a column called name in one table and a column called name in a different table, it will automatically relate those two. Those two name columns could be something totally different. It could be a person's name in one table and maybe a business name in another table. So we never use auto detect. We can go in and we can click on new relationship there, and we can go and choose what we want to do. So let's maybe do one more. We can go and we can say we want to do our product table. Well, let's choose sales on the top this time, or product on top this time, and sales on the bottom. So automatically Power BI has picked up that product ID and product ID are named the same. If it had chosen something wrong, we can just go and choose the field we want. So we choose product ID and product ID. That's exactly what we want. And the cardinality always takes the top table first and then the bottom table. So it's one to many. One product can be sold many times. So we're happy with that. It's chosen the correct one. If it wasn't the correct one, we could go and choose one of these other options. And we always want it to filter in a single direction. These other cardinalities, you could have one-to-one, where it is a person to an ID table, for example. So one person in one table would only have one ID in another table. You can have many-to-one, like we've looked at now. You also have an option of many-to-many. So for example, you might have many lectures being able to be taken by many students. That's a more advanced topic that we'll touch on in future courses. But for now, one-to-many or many-to-one, depending on the order of the tables here, are the ones that we're going to use. So I can click on Save, and you can see it's created another relationship for me here. So if I close that, you can see we now have our product relationship too. And then when it comes to the date relationship, we always want to make sure that our date table is marked as a date table. So if we go in here, we want to be able to go to our tables, calendar options, mark as date table. Mark as date table on, and we want to choose the date will be our unique identifier, and it tells you that it's happy, and we click Save. Now, don't worry too much that it said not recommended to mark this as a date table. Power BI can give you its own date calendar, But in most cases, you want to use something from a source database or another system. So you will, in most cases, need to identify or mark a table that you're pulling from a source as a date table like we've done here. So I'm marking this as a date table, and I mark the date column as the field I want to be able to use to join to the field I want to use in my relational sales table here. So again, we can grab from that table, drag and drop it onto order date. It says we're going to link our calendar date field to our sales table order date field. It's going to be one date, can have many sales on that date, and it will be a single direction filter. We can click save. And how to always just proof this, if you do your dimensions on top and you have your fact tables at the bottom, you'll always see one to many flowing down from your dimensions. Now you will hear a term when you're working with Power BI and other business intelligence tools of a star schema. And what a star schema is having dimension tables and fact tables, and how they normally sit is with the dimensions around the fact table that it looks like a star. So you might have other dimensions sitting below the sales table and it'll look like a star. That's called a star schema, but what we've done here is exactly the same thing. It's a star schema. I just prefer doing the layout with all of my dimensions at the top and my fact table at the bottom. So now you can see that we've marked our date table as a date table. We've got our three relationships defined. You can see them all flowing down, one to many. So we know that that's correct. So just to touch on some key points again, relationships are what make Power BI so amazing. Without them, you wouldn't be able to slice and dice any of your data. You wouldn't be able to filter your charts across different tables. Star schema is the preferred architecture that we use, where we have a fact table and we have dimension tables around that. That's why they call it a star schema. One to many is the most common relationship type. The one side is the lookup, the many is the fact table. So the fact table looks up from the dimension table. The filter direction flows from the lookup table to the fact table by default. So you always want to have your dimensions, one, flowing down to your fact table, many. When you mark your date table as the date table, Power BI knows to use this for time intelligence. So when we get to the DAX course, which is the next course that uses this exact same model, you'll do a lot of time intelligence calculations like year-to-date sales, month-after-month variance, that kind of thing. And how Power BI knows how to do those calculations is that you have marked your calendar as a date table. Then basically, this is exactly the same model structure you would use in an enterprise Power BI architecture. So although we're doing this as a small data set, and it looks fairly simple, if you were connecting to a database in a big corporate company, the logic would be exactly the same. So the skills you're learning here, you'll be able to apply, even at a larger scale if you're working with bigger data. So what we've done, we've just built a star schema. We've got the same model structure that's used in enterprise reporting. So this is, getting you ready for those bigger projects, which is great. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how the filters flow through these relationships. So then you'll understand exactly how we can apply what we've done here. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you.